The internet has done wonderful things for the horse industry. Now we have access to world-renowned horse trainers at our fingertips, and they are offering a multitude of different online courses on how to successfully train your own horse. But as great as all of those online programs and mentorships are, not a single one of those horse trainers mentions something very, very critical on their sales pages. And that is that not everyone is cut out to successfully train their own horse. You've probably seen books, podcasts, YouTube videos, online courses, all sorts of things are now available that teach you how to train your own horse. But as great as all of those resources are, and don't get me wrong, I use a ton of those resources myself, but as good as they are, they oversimplify what it really takes to train a horse. One thing that a lot of those programs fail to mention is the fact that in order to successfully train your own horse, you need to understand horse psychology. And whether successful horse trainers recognize it or not, if they are successfully training horses, they have some sort of an understanding of how horses think and respond to the world around them. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, how hard can it be? It's a horse. They are an animal. It is not that deep. But trust me when I say, after recently going down a rabbit hole of the topic of horse psychology, I am only scratching the surface of that topic. We have to remember that horses are prey animals. We are predators, and we think completely different than a horse. And it is very, very difficult to switch off the predator mindset and tune into the prey animal mindset. You can read all of the books, listen to all the podcast episodes, watch all the videos, but in order to really thoroughly understand horse psychology and be able to work with that knowledge in practice, it comes down to spending hours and hours and hours with a variety of horses in a whole lot of different scenarios. It is not something that you can just theoretically learn. It takes application year after year. Training also requires a lot of timing, consistency, and accurate use of your body language. With horses, it's not just about knowing what to do, it's also about knowing when to do it, how long to do it, how aggressively to do it, like all these degrees of, it's not just a matter of knowing that you need to do something, it's all the other things beyond that that you need to know as well. And with online programs, it's very easy to say, these are the steps you need to do, but it's the little nuances within those steps that are often overlooked when you're doing an online training program. If you've been in the horse industry long enough, you've likely heard of this thing called feel, this elusive thing that I think in my opinion, takes a very long time to develop. Some people pick it up sooner than others. It's no different than, some people can learn how to throw a ball or swing a bat faster than others. I think feel is the exact same thing, but regardless of whether you have a natural inclination to pick it up faster or not, it still takes a lot of time to develop. Okay, when does this cue need to be applied? How much, for how long, and when do I need to release? The release is the big part, and I think that's a huge thing that non-professional horse trainers struggle with, is not knowing the release, and that's because they have not developed their sense of feel, which I feel like is nearly impossible to teach through a book or a podcast or some online video training program. One other thing that I think is really hard for online training programs to overcome is consistency. The majority of people consuming that kind of content are people like me. We're non-pros, horses are our hobby, and let's be honest, between financial constraints, weather, time, work, family obligations, all of those things, horses, despite our best efforts, are not our top priority. And as a result of that, we're inconsistent with our horses. I look at myself, for example, like I have every intention to be very consistent with my horses. I'm in a very privileged position where I don't have children that I need to take care of. I'm financially stable, and yet I still struggle to be consistent. Why? Well, for one, I'm an accountant, which means from mid-February till April 30th, I hardly see my horses at all. I make sure basic needs are taken care of, but I am not riding or working with them at all during tax season. We also have to factor in weather. I do not have an indoor riding arena, which means that I am very much at the mercy of Mother Nature. So, in the summer, if it's rainy and my arena's bogged out, likely not going to be riding. Once we get to November 1st is usually when my normal riding season ends. So then from November till April 30th, that's 6 months, y'all. 6 months. I am probably not riding, and my groundwork is inconsistent at best. And that's with me being consistent with my horses being one of my very high priorities. And I'm still not consistent for 6 months of the year. And regardless of whether I have signed up for the best online horse training program in the world, I am still not going to overcome that. And it is still going to take me significantly longer to train my horse because of that 6 months where I am incredibly inconsistent. It's also probably worth mentioning the emotional side of horse training for a second. And don't worry, I'm not going to get natural horsemanship-y, tune into your horse kind of stuff. But horses are very much tuned into the emotions that we are giving off. And again, for a lot of non-pro people where horses are just their hobby, again, I'm just talking from my experience, I come to the barn from work. If I've had a particularly stressful day at work, you can guarantee that I am giving off those stressy vibes, and my horse isn't going to like it. And that is definitely not a recipe for having a good session. I can almost guarantee that if it was a very stressful day at work, I don't know, I missed a deadline or something, and I'm very much anxious and stressed, my horse is going to pick up on that. I can almost guarantee we will not have a good ride. We will not get anything accomplished that day. And that is just the reality of it, because there is very much an emotional side of horse training. And if you have other things going on, because again, horses are not your full-time occupation, it can be very, very difficult to manage those emotions that are now filtering through to your horse. A lot of the people buying into these online training programs are, again, non-pro people who experience might be limited, and along with that comes a safety risk. I think a lot of us take for granted that we're dealing with 1,200-pound animals who like to spook at random moments, and when they do spook, they might forget that you are standing directly beside them. Definitely had that happen before. So there's definitely this element of safety and putting potentially your own health and physical well-being at risk, as well as the horse if you don't know what you're doing. And I think a lot of the training programs will be like, okay, yeah, a helmet's a good idea, make sure you're staying safe, those kind of things. Be sure you're mindful when you're walking up behind a horse, all those good things. But when you are inexperienced with horses, there is just an inherent higher level of risk that, again, I don't think an online training program can completely overcome. You can be educated about how to safely handle and work around a horse, but if you're doing an online training program because you have a horse that's maybe inexperienced or green as well, they are also inherently not as safe as a well-trained horse. So this whole thing about being potentially unsafe is a risk that, again, I don't think online training programs A, fully acknowledge, or B, can completely overcome. I'm not saying that I am anti online horse training program. In fact, I invest in those things myself. I think they are fantastic. I've learned a lot from different programs over the years, but I think there's this very important point that we need to make, that there are shortcomings when an inexperienced person is trying to train their own horse, and there's a very good chance that even if you followed their program to a T, there's a very good chance that your horse is not going to come out the other end of it looking as if it had been trained specifically by, say, Stacy Westfall or Tick Maynard or Warwick Schiller. There is still going to be a difference even if you do follow their programs to a T. And I just think that that's something that we need to acknowledge. We can't live in this delusion that my training following Stacy Westfall's program is going to be exactly the same as if Stacy Westfall was here with her butt in the saddle on my horse. With all this being said, I would say I encourage you to sign up for online training programs. I think, as I've said time and time again, you need to view horse ownership as also being a lifelong student of horse care, riding, training, all the things. You're always going to be learning things, and online training programs can be an awesome way to further that education. But I also want to say there's no shame around hiring a professional and fully admitting that, like, I cannot do this myself, I need help. And whether that looks like full-blown sending your horse away for someone else to ride them for 6 months, or getting regular lessons with a trainer, or going to clinics here and there, like, it can look various different ways, but just know that professionals are here to help. That's what their businesses are built on. And I think there's, nothing wrong with seeking out their professional assistance, because again, that's what they do for a living. People come to me with their bookkeeping, their tax needs, all that stuff, because that's what I do for a living. They can maybe watch a YouTube video and figure out how to fill out their tax return, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna probably get it done quicker, with likely more accuracy, and it's just off their plate and they don't have to worry about it. The exact same thing can be said about horse training and hiring a professional. I'll just end on, before you decide to jump feet first into horse training, training your own horse, take a step back and ask yourself, do I have the time? Do I have the ambition to become educated about training my horse? Is this, potential safety risks that I'm willing to take on? And ultimately, is this in the best interest of my horse? I think asking that question is very, very important. And once you properly answer that question, I think your horse will be better off for it and will thank you. So like I said, I'm not anti online training program. I've signed up for a few here and there throughout the year. I constantly read books. I'm always listening to podcasts, as you guys know, just furthering my education. There's definitely good things about those programs. But again, I don't want you to live in the delusion that you follow this person's program and you're going to get an all-star horse at the end of the day. There's a lot more to horse training than those programs initially indicate, and I just want you to be aware of that. I don't want you to be discouraged. I just want you to fully understand what you're getting into when you decide that I'm going to train my own horse. Be sure to follow me everywhere at Strong in the Saddle, and until next time, remember, it's always a good day to ride.